everybody to another Outlander Day, which is a kind of ritual in the calendar now, in this wonderful Highland Folk Museum. And today we're welcoming Andy the Highlander, who I was doing a bit of doom scrolling on Instagram, as you have to, research, and 774,000 followers on Instagram. Wow,
Yep.
That's reach. You have created content.
Yep.
And with your tours, I'm going to start just by reading one or two little extracts to make your ears burn.
Nice.
The reviews. Someone said, travelling around Scotland on your own is a good time. However, sightseeing with Andy the Highlander is an absolute blast. And another person said, I felt like a queen. Scotland's stunning countryside and history, enhanced with Andy's knowledge and passion, was a once-in-a-lifetime adventure, etc. And another, Andy the Highlander was the highlight of our visit to Scotland. That's enough of tooting your trumpet,
Yeah,
Mr. Highlander.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet you do. So what I wanted to start with was, you've created this character. It's almost like a work of fiction,
Yeah.
Andy the Highlander, although it is you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's auto-fiction.
Yeah.
So who are you? How did it start? Where did you begin? And how did Andrew McAlinden become Andy the Highlander? You okay to start with that?
Absolutely, that's a good question. Funnily enough, I was in my bedroom last week and I was getting changed. I didn't have the kilt on, and I said to my wife, who am I? Am I Andy or Andy the Highlander? And she's like, well, you're both. But this all started, here we are today on International Outlander Day, 7th of June. But this journey for me from being Andrew McAlinden was after filming on Outlander. So I was one of Jamie's men in season 2. So I filmed about 35 days on season 2 as a Highlander. And in season 3, I was a Highlander, a red coat, one of the town guards, Jamie's leg double in one of the scenes. And my family have gone on to film on multiple seasons of Outlander, and maybe even the prequel, maybe. So it started off as a persona. I did a video in my garden back in 2015 demonstrating how to wear the plaid, and the video went viral.
That was your legs, you know that.
It was the legs, you know. But it got over 5.3 million views in the first 30 days.
Wow.
And I was getting better known in the Outlander circle. Before I set the tour company up, people would come from abroad and I would meet up with them for a coffee, get them dressed up in the kilts, maybe do a wee sword fight with them. And I then went on to set up Highlander tours and became one of the busiest tour guides in my country pretty quickly. So that's really how the Andy the Highlander thing came about. It started off as a persona, but this is who I am now. It's really weird, you know.
Yes.
I dress like this every day. I don't even know who old Andy is anymore. This is who I am now. Whether it's social engagements or doing the tours, this is who I am. It's really strange. I pick the kids up from school dressed like this.
Do you?
Yeah.
How do they feel about that? They're not at the stage where they say, Dad, could you drop me 100 yards down
Well,
the road?
yeah, the 12-year-old son doesn't want me anywhere near his school because he's in first year now. But Lana, Lana's 9, and I was at their school a few months ago doing a talk on Loch Ness Monster, Rabbie Burns, Outlander, and Lana still thinks I'm cool. So that's nice.
Yay.
Yay.
But it must have transformed your everyday life because you're an electrician to trade.
That's
were you?
right.
That's how you trade.
Yeah.
You trained. Funnily enough, my godson's an actor and he's just trained as an electrician.
There you go.
He's gone the other way.
Brilliant.
He's trying to do both. How's it changed your everyday life? I mean, what's your life like now? What's your...
So,
Is
yeah.
it seasonal, or I mean, how much are you at home, and how does the wife take it? Is she here
She's not here today.
to give us her
Yeah,
opinion?
she's having a break. But when Anna and I got together, my wife's from Croatia. When she first met me, I was just crazy Andy. And yes, I did have kilts and I had swords. But the transition from being an electrician, I was self-employed. I lost my father. So this whole journey for me came from my dad passing away back in 2006, 2007. And I was completely and utterly broken. So out of that, like a phoenix rising from the ashes, I had to do something as a distraction to get my head out of the grieving process. So I joined my local theatre, treading the boards, and I did that for about 10 years. And it was a great distraction, learning words, learning your lines. I wasn't the first to learn my lines. I was usually one of the last. I was a troublemaker. this was amateur. I remember the director, Hayden. Now you must get off the book, you know, ex-RAF, you know.
Yeah.
But for me, that was a great distraction. And then I went on to join a professional casting agency in Glasgow. I had done quite a few different featured roles as a serial killer, 1950s detective, you name it, a celebrant in Still Game, second last ever episode, married Winston and Winnie. But it was 2015 where I got a generic email from my agent David asking if I was free to film on hit US TV drama. And they never said that it was Outlander, but I knew it was. I had already seen the first season of Outlander, and I'm sure, as a lot of us know, first couple of episodes, there's just something about it that draws you in. We now know it as the Outlander effect, which you've spoken about before. But that was it for me, just completely changed my life. So with the electrical work, because I was self-employed, I could say yes to my agent every single time he either called me or emailed me. I could juggle my work. So as an agent, you're looking for an easy life. You're looking for somebody that just says, yes, Andy, can you be in Edinburgh in an hour and a half? Yes. So that's how it started. So it was kind of electrical, and then maybe 50-50 with the acting, and then setting the tour company up. And now my life is really 90% tours, maybe less than that, Sean. Would you say 70% tours, 30% social media?
Yeah, something like that.
So this is my brother Sean here. It was on a family holiday 2 or 3 years ago. 3 years ago, we were on Loch in a place called Kenmore, and Sean already had a little Pokemon page with a 10,000 followers. And Sean said, with his now fiancée Hilary, look, why don't we try and make a go of this and do the social media for you first time? And I think our first video was a Whitney Houston song, first one, and just dressed as Andy, hand in front of the camera, and then I've got a red rose in my mouth dressed as Andy the Highlander. So that was our first video. So we've gone from 40,000 followers to over 1 million followers on Facebook now, just doing these videos. So it's pretty crazy.
Amazing. How much are you away from home? I mean, because I know you've just done the West Highland Way, you and 10 billion midgets by the sound of it.
Yeah, I've got the evidence down here,
Yeah. I mean,
So-
how much of the time are you?
I am away a lot, but with the content, doing the content creation, we now have a lot of opportunities to go and stay in different places around Scotland. Hotels, whiskey distilleries, whatever it is, people will get in touch and ask if we would like to either partnership with, you know, nice accommodations or whatever it is. So the family do get to trail along sometimes as well, which is one of the perks.
Yeah, and but because the kids are in school, presumably.
Weekends.
So do you think, are you away from home half the time, something like that? Do you think?
No,
I mean, you're like an actor, although
it is.
you're principally doing your tours now.
Yeah.
And introducing people to Scotland.
That's right.
It is almost like an acting gig, isn't it?
It's long days, Sarah. You know, I live in the west coast of Scotland, about half an hour from Glasgow at the moment. So my days, like an 8-hour tour for me, is really a 15-hour day. I have to leave the house at 6:15 in the morning at the very latest in order to get to Edinburgh, where most of my pickups are from, for 8:45 in the morning. So that's when I have to leave the house, and I don't get back till 8:30 at night. I have to clean the car, prepare all the snacks, fold all the kilts, get everything ready for the next day, and prepare my tour notes, like the locations I'm going to, and plan out the tour. So it's long days, but this is my office. As I walked the West Highland Way over the last week, you know, I just looked at the beautiful scenery, and I thought, this is what I get to do on a daily basis. So I'm very lucky.
Would you do the West Highland Way again?
Yeah, in 15 years' time.
Yeah. Okay.
Alright.
I was going to say, is there anything that you think, actually, no, I'm not going to do that again? Was there any place where you just thought it's too much, it's too difficult to get to, or it's just?
There are some pretty remote places, but I think Scotland's a double-edged sword. We have a problem with over-tourism at hotspots like the Isle of Skye. I do mention Skye in my book, and I kind of wanted to maybe try and avoid it, but it is just so stunningly beautiful. But I do try and take people away to other places like Islay and Arran, for example. I was on Arran, which is known as Scotland in miniature. I was there a couple of weeks ago, down at the Scottish borders, trying to take people to places that are less well known.
So do you suggest tours to them, or do people come and say, this is what we want to do?
Yeah, it's a mixture. Usually they'll have an idea whether it's an Outlander themed tour, whether that could be a 1-day tour or a 5-day tour, or they might have Scottish ancestry up in the Highlands, whatever it is. They might just tell me, look, I love Scotland, I've seen the videos, and can you suggest a tour, maybe doing some of the Highlands? I've heard Glencoe's nice, you know, whatever. So,
And how?
aye, yeah.
And what's your favourite place? Do you have a favourite? Do you have a favourite?
Favourite.
Well, like, let's
Yeah.
go into favourite place out in the wilds in nature and favourite place in the built environment.
Glencoe.
Is it?
Glencoe is just, for me, strikingly beautiful. I mean, the Three Sisters, these mountains were formed over 480 million years ago when the two continents, Avalonia and Laurentia, collided. The valley of Glencoe 12,000 years ago with the retreating ice, it's just ruggedly beautiful. Built up, well, one of my favourite places to visit is the town of Couros on the east coast, and it's supposed to be the most haunted town in Scotland. I've had a lot of things happen to me in Couros Palace, and there's a woman that works there called Linda. I'll just tell you quickly about this. So Linda's got a gift, right? She's done past life regression with me, and some interesting things came
I'm
up.
asking who you are now.
So this
I'm
is
asking
crazy.
who you
Well,
were.
I was actually Adam Smith.
Oh my word!
This is crazy. So I get goosebumps there. So
Yeah. Good grief.
she did the past life regression, and I'm in the ground. I could see cobbles and graves. I look up and I can see Calton Hill, and I said all of a sudden Smith, right? That meant nothing to me. I didn't know who Adam Smith was, and then I said 1776, right? This is really weird. So I came to. She brought me back in. So we googled Smith 1776. League of Nations, is that
the Wealth of Nations.
Wealth of Nations?
It's basically the primer for caring capitalism. It is capitalism, but obviously someone has run with it the wrong way. But anyway.
So that's what came up with that one. But anyway, this place, Couros Palace, Linda, who works there, she gave me this recently. She's given me pyrite before, which is fool's gold. She's given me black obsidian. I can't remember what you call this one.
Yeah.
Anyway, she sent me a message 2 weeks ago on my way home from a tour. I was about 20 minutes from my house, and she told me that she'd had a dream about me the night before, and she said, please be careful near your house, round the corner from your house, on a back road. And I'm thinking, that's weird, but I did slow down. Got home 20 minutes later, horrible accident, 3-car pile-up on the country road, about a minute 30 seconds drive from my house. So anyway, yeah, crazy place and crazy energies from this place.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Adam's, have you had any other? Have you had dreams about being? I mean, he's one of the luminaries of the Scottish
funny,
Enlightenment.
you know.
David Hume, William
David
Robertson,
Hume,
Adam Smith. These are the great men
Scottish
of,
Enlightenment philosophers, you
yes,
know.
of the Athens of the North.
Absolutely,
When Edinburgh
yeah, they
really
challenged,
was the Athens
yeah.
of the North.
So that was really
Respect,
strange.
by the
Yeah,
way,
there you
for
go.
being
Now, the
Adam
fact that he
Smith.
wrote a book as well, I'm like, it must be me. And there's a statue of Adam Smith just down from St Giles Cathedral, and he's got massive calf muscles.
Yeah.
So it must have been me.
Oh, it must have been you. It must have been you. So what do you let's do a bit on the supernatural then. So what do you believe? What do you believe the supernatural is? How do you? Yeah, let's start with
Yeah,
that.
so
Nice
I believe,
general question.
I believe there's definitely something there.
Yeah.
There's two places that I visited in Scotland that I get this feeling every time. Couros Palace, which dates back to 1597, built by Sir George Bruce. He was an engineer and a very wealthy merchant. So he builds the palace in 1597. This is round about the same time as James VI of Scotland writing the book on witchcraft and demonology. And inside the palace, on the wooden fireplaces, there's loads of protection marks, the little circles, the little petals, and even the little vertical scores as well. So these are both different documented protection marks. You know, at night time, you can close your door, you can close the blinds, you can close the windows, but you can't close the chimney. So in this town alone, there were over 30 men and women tried for witchcraft. You know, it's just horrific. They're chained to the rocks and drowned. So that's one place that I have had a few things happen. I write about it in the book. I'll tell you quickly. So, say 15, 16 years ago, mum and dad and the little girl are visiting the palace. They're in the laird's bedroom, and the little girl sneaks into the strong room. In the 16th century, they didn't have any banks, but they had a strong room. Stone floor, stone walls, stone ceiling, bulletproof, fireproof, with two recesses in the walls, the coffre-fort safes. to keep the money and the important documents. So the little girl sneaks into the strong room, and the mum hears her talking to someone. She says, "Who are you talking to?" And the little girl says, "The man, Mummy." "What man?" "The man with the funny collar." There was nobody there, so they go upstairs into the painted chamber. And as soon as they walk through the room, the little girl points to the portrait of George Bruce on the wall with the big funny collar. "That's the man there, Mummy." So like total goosebumps. But my story comes after that. It was about 6 years ago, day before Halloween, day before the palace was to close for the season. The staff had pinned bay leaves onto the wall to warn off the evil spirits. And there was a small chair with a mannequin doll and wearing a little linen gown with a linen hat. So the very second that we walked into the room and I said, "That's George Bruce there, the man with the funny collar," the bay leaves went, fell on the floor, and the hat that was on top of the mannequin flew from one side of the room to the other. We were standing there. The woman looks at me, she looks at her husband, and she kind of smiled and said, "You guys did that?" It's like, no, we didn't. So that's just one of the stories. I've heard heavy men's footsteps above. I've had women on tour with me screaming, jumping back, "Who pulled my hair?" Women bursting into tears, all sorts of things. So that's one place. The other place is the Greyfriars Kirkyard. George Mackenzie, who was known as Bloody Mackenzie, he was the man responsible for the persecution of the Covenanters, those who rose up against the signing of the Covenant after the Battle of Bothwell Bridge, and he allowed the guards to torture the prisoners at will. So a few years ago, I'm doing a talk on the stairs in front of his mausoleum. The first photo that was taken, now this was completely pitch black, it was night time. First photo was completely normal. The second one, I had this green glow behind my head, and I will never, ever stand there again.
No, you wouldn't.
No.
You wouldn't. I read, just as a kind of, adjunct on the supernatural and what it might be, I read an article once in a friend's toilet, as you do, because the magazines are there, and it was the New Scientist, which I do not usually take, not being a science person. And they were talking about dimensions. We have the fifth dimension, the fourth dimension, and space and time, and scientists say there's 25 dimensions or something that we can't perceive them all. And they were talking about a theory of time, almost like a geological sample, where different areas of time are sort of layered up, and that if you're in one particular place where someone has been, like say George Bruce,
these energies,
it would simply come back. You're in that place, and it's just a sort of almost like a little eruption from one dimension into another, and because it's still going on there in 1597, it's still actually there, and it's all happening, and that kind of, I can't rationalise it because you can't, but you can sort of imagine it, and that kind of makes sense.
It makes sense to me, absolutely.
That you would feel that, and you do believe in reincarnation.
I do in a way.
Because as Adam Smith, which is
absolutely,
a
absolutely.
thing. Yes, I think I do too. Used to be, we used to be a sort of Christian country, but it was they, until quite late, until about 11 or 1200, it was quite orthodox to believe in reincarnation, and then they made it unorthodox and heretical. But that doesn't account for it in any way, does it?
Yeah, in the book I talk about a taphophile as well, somebody that likes to hang about cemeteries. I'm in these ancient sites on a daily basis, and like you say, they say that the energies can follow you, whether they're good or bad. So that's why my friends have been giving me pyrite, obsidian. I can't remember the name of this one. Do you know? Can't remember. Anyway, they're supposed to protect you.
Is it hematite?
No,
Hematite.
if you said it, I would get it. It'll maybe come to me.
I'm a South-Ewist.
Yeah.
I actually believe if you go into a cemetery to visit the grave, you should walk around the cemetery clockwise
Right.
before you visit the grave, and let people know you're there before you go in.
Yeah.
I found that out recently.
Yeah.
After 50 years.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting with different cultures' beliefs. I think there's other cultures that they wash their hands when they leave, but regardless, I always visit these places with respect. And I love one of our biggest videos on social media was about Memento Mori, remember death, a symbolic reminder of the inevitability of death. And I just love that these 17th century graves have the symbols of the profession of the person. There's one particular one, I actually mention this cemetery in my book, Abercorn, which dates back to the 12th century, master rebuild in 1897, something like that. But it's actually got a headstone called the Baker's Stone or the Baxter's Stone, and it's got the peel with 3 bread baps on it, and it's also got a rolling pin, and it's the only rolling pin on a gravestone in Scotland. I love that.
I do, and I love the mix of the domestic and the everyday, and then the skulls, the crossbones, the winged angels,
Angels, cherubs, doves.
that very inclusive, you know, sort of way of looking at the world. It's all in there. It's all, and it's. I mean, and speaking of those things, like in you almost embody that, because you've got that sort of heterogeneous mix, because like Edinburgh, you know, you've got the old Edinburgh, which would certainly believe in ghosts and ghouls and has ghost tours and Deacon Brodie and Burke and Hare.
Right.
And then you've got rational Edinburgh on the other side, the new town. And there they are side by side, and they're both equally beautiful, powerful, relevant, alive. And it's a great kind of visual conversation going on, isn't it, between those. Are you going to give us a wee reading? I see you've got your co-op goat's cheese
so
there.
I'm going to do a wee bit from the book, but I need 2 female volunteers. Right, one there, and I need another one. Right, up you come. Right. Right, there's one. Right, I need a second volunteer. Right. Okay. You're going to take that hat. You're going to take the cheese, right? So, the River Ness is over there. I need you to roll that cheese towards the River Ness. Right? Just roll it. I'll eat that later. That's fine. Now, you've got my hat. I want you to throw my hat away as well. Right, there you go. I'll get that later as well. Right, you can sit down, ladies. Thank you. So, lots of people know about the wars of Scottish independence, the Battle of Culloden, and even the War of the Three Kingdoms. But there was another conflict in Inverness that few are aware of, the Cheese Riot of 1666. The story goes that Finlay Dhu from Clan MacDonald fancied himself a bit of cheese from the local market and asked the vendor for the price. It transpired that Finlay then dropped the cheese wheel, which rolled into the River Ness. Whether this was on purpose due to his outrage at the price or by accident, we'll never know, but Finlay pleaded his innocence. Regardless, the vendor demanded compensation for her lost cheese, and things escalated further when another woman grabbed Finlay's bonnet, refusing to return it until he paid up. A full-scale riot ensued. The militia got involved and shots were fired. When the smoke cleared, 2 MacDonalds lay dead and others were thrown into prison. This, of course, didn't go down too well with Clan MacDonald, and they demanded compensation, in return for which they vowed not to burn the town down. That sounded fairly reasonable, except that the compensation involved the payment of £66,000, perpetual exemption from taxation, the unwavering support of the town of Inverness in times of war, at the town's expense of course, and some land thrown in. The townspeople felt this was maybe a wee bit on the costly side, but then again they didn't want their homes burned down, so they got King Charles II involved in the negotiation. In the end, the town released the MacDonalds from prison and paid £4,800, and in return the MacDonalds snuffed out their torches. So the moral of this story: if you're planning to buy a spot of cheese in Inverness, please do take the utmost care not to drop it. Right, I want my hat back now. Yeah. Thank you, volunteers.
Yeah. Where did you get that story from?
Research. Yeah.
Because it's a great
It's
story.
a good one. Not many people know about that.
No,
Yeah.
What
Thank you.
time is it supposed to be set in? Do you know?
It's 17th century, 1666.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there's lots of well-known stories in the book, but other
Yes,
little
there are.
gems like this one.
Yes.
And Sean and I, it was actually Sean that found this one. I don't know if anybody's seen my video on, when I first did the video, I pronounced it Seth Moore. I've since learned it's Shay Moore. So this was a 14th century, I need to refer back. 14th century warrior, known as the Great Shaw. But this is a grave near Aviemore, and it's got cursed gravestones round about it. We had mort safes to protect the new corpses from being stolen from grave robbers, but this one is to protect the people of the land and of the living. Cursed gravestones. So that was a great story as well. But before we did the video, there was nothing. There was just a small story online about that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because you say you won't go near that. You don't
I will
like
not
that.
go near that one. I'll not touch that one. Definitely not.
Yeah.
I'm superstitious, as you can see.
You are superstitious. You are superstitious. Are any of your kids? Are your kids superstitious? I mean, is it catching like asthma or something?
Well, I mean, they know a lot of all my stories, so
Yes.
I think they'll kind of listen to what their dad said as well, and not go too close to these stones either. You know.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's great.
Andy, is
Yes.
that the one with the cage over the top?
Yes.
Yeah, you really freaked me out on that.
Freaked myself out.
You do. I can remember watching that. And
Yeah,
I never
aye.
want to go there.
When you hear stories like that, you're not going to tempt fate.
No.
You know, some people put coins on top of them.
Yeah,
I'll keep
Yes.
at least 2 meters away from it at all times.
yeah, I remember that one.
I had to do the close-ups. I was fearing for my life after.
Nah, not me.
They're like cold rooms. You know, I know there's a friend lives in a restored old tower house
Yeah.
castle, and another friend was involved in the architectural renovations, and she is atheist to her fingernails, but there's a room in the bottom she won't go in. It
Yeah.
just ice the minute she goes in there,
And she feels something.
and she
Yeah.
won't go back in there, and she absolutely refuses to ascribe any meaning to it or anything else. It's just right. I'm not going in there. I'm not
Yeah.
going to look at it. But yet, something. Her reaction is violent
Yeah.
in a sense.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I'm not going back in that room.
It's interesting, going back to Kuros Palace, it's the non-believers, right? It's these people who are like, "Pff, absolute nonsense," and then something happens to them that they cannot explain, and they come out the palace shaking, freaked out, you know?
Yes, more things in
Uh-huh.
heaven and earth.
Yeah.
There are, aren't there? There's another thing you were. One of the other things that you make quite something of in the book is colour. You know, and remember the hoo-ha when Stirling Castle was repainted.
Yes.
Well, particularly
The
the
Great
hall,
Hall.
the hall in King's Gold, which is a fabulous colour. I mean, it must have looked like Camelot on the hill.
Incredible.
And does,
Yeah.
glowing in the
Yeah.
sunshine. But that whole idea of colour in the past, I mean, colour itself was glamorous because it was expensive and elusive.
Yeah.
And how much colour there must have been in those buildings. Are you,
Yeah,
are
absolutely.
you aware of that when you...
Yeah, absolutely. So Sarah's talking about the Great Hall at Stirling Castle, and when they restored the castle, they put this scaffolding right round the castle so the people of the town couldn't see what was going on. When they unveiled it all, to their horror, they saw this bright building, which is a ferrous oxide ochre King's Gold, right? It's stunning. So on a sunny day, you can see it from miles and miles away. So that was a statement. They like to show off and show their wealth. But actually, if you go back to the records, they actually state that the whole castle was yellow. You know, the existing castle, the earliest part at the moment is the Nether Bailey, which they say dates back to the 14th century. But everything else is past that. The original castle during the Scottish Wars of Independence, when Robert the Bruce destroyed it after the Battle of Bannockburn on the 23rd and 24th of June 1314, that was just a much smaller wooden fortress. But this newer castle was all in King's Gold.
Yes.
I just
Stunning.
love that colour.
And also the colour inside, because if you when you go into Stirling, probably many of you have been there. They've restored all those roundels on the roof and the painted wooden
The
seams
Stirling
above.
heads, yeah.
And they are everything. It was full of colour.
Yep.
It was full of images. It was full of words. You know,
Yep.
like those painters. Is there one in Kuros?
Yeah, you
Yep.
get the
A
painted
painted
chamber,
ceiling, is there?
absolutely, yep. Which at
And
the time would have been bright and bold, but over the centuries with tobacco, sunlight, it's
Yeah.
faded somewhat. But yeah, it must have been absolutely incredible. I always wonder though, who's all been to Stirling Castle? So James V Palace, his royal apartments, they've recreated it to what it may have looked like. I wonder how similar to the original colours these actually are. It's hard
wonder.
because yeah, everything we see nowadays is a ruin, isn't it? It's all
Yes.
completely gone.
It is, but you get that sense when you go into, if you think of what the old churches would have looked like, covered in frescoes. I mean,
Absolutely.
just like cartoons, wouldn't they? Brightly coloured
Yeah.
cartoons everywhere. I mean, with biblical stories,
Yeah, absolutely.
and all the columns and pillars. I mean,
Very
they
ornate.
did not think less is more. They
Yeah.
thought
Oh, yeah.
more is
It was
more.
a bold
Get it
statement.
in there
Yeah.
if you can afford
Absolutely.
it. It's a glory
Yeah.
thing.
Sorry, can I answer your question?
Yes.
How accurate are the colours?
Yeah.
They are as accurate as my colleague could have made them.
Really?
Oh, right.
Wow. Really?
She was involved in it. He was involved.
I worked for the conservation.
Oh, amazing.
Board out
Right.
Scotland.
And so, did they use natural pigments, or are they using?
What they did was scrape what was there. It was the wooden heads.
Oh yes.
They
Yep.
scraped them down and they lasered them.
Yeah.
And then they got the digital imprints, and it was at the forefront of this technology. This was
Yeah.
the 2009.
Yeah.
And my colleague had the paint, and he was going Google-eyed, looking into
Yeah.
the wee microscopes things, and he couldn't decide whether it was white or pink. So he called me in, and I couldn't decide either. And I left it up to the man that was paid to do the job. So, so yeah,
That's
he
fascinating.
made it as accurate as possible.
Yeah.
And then what they did was they went down through the layers, and they could tell how many paint colours there were and how many times it had been painted.
Oh right.
So interesting.
Yeah,
It is. It's so interesting.
it took years.
Yeah, because when you've got that physical evidence that you can actually, you know, with all the research, but you've got places like Linlithgow Palace, the Royal Chapel, for example, that you go into. We know from the records it had a beautiful blue ceiling, painted blue with gold stars, but that's purely from the records, no physical evidence to look back on, you know.
No, I mean their aesthetic was colourful.
Yeah.
That whole aesthetic that we went through of stripping everything back, that they didn't have at all. Because if you think of how they dressed, if you could afford to dress beautifully
Yeah.
in cloth of gold, cloth of silver, embroidery, damask, colour, wear it. Strut your stuff.
Absolutely.
And the tapestries on the walls. I mean, it was, life was short and hard, and you go into a place of colour, and it's kind of, it just would lift the whole
Yeah.
spirit, wouldn't it?
A sign of status.
Oh, indeed,
Again,
of course.
you know, you've got
The
the
rest of us wouldn't have had that.
No, that I mean, the common man or woman would have had, and Marion, I'm sure, has told you all about it, depending on what grew in the area, the dyes they could get. But with this international shipping, towns like Couros, for example, which was
yes.
originally a borough of barony, it then became a royal borough,
Yeah.
which allowed international trading. So at some point, and centuries before that as well, you had these ships coming from the New World with exotic fruits like pineapples that you would put on your table and show all your guests and not eat it.
Until it
You had
melted.
lions and monkeys, lions and tigers and bears, oh my. You had lions and all these exotic animals been brought in. But along with that, these things from India, East India Trading Company, these beautiful
Pigments.
spices,
And
pigments,
pigments.
yeah.
Yeah, and it was. I remember there was a kind of, the world went crazy when they discovered
Oh
indigo
yeah,
or something.
absolutely.
Now, has anyone got any questions? Because I feel we should be opening this out
Yes.
for Andy about where he's been. or-
I have.
Yep.
Yes.
Andy, after, when you don't do the tours, what is your hobby? What you want to do when you don't do the tours? What you want to do? What you like
Yeah.
to do?
Okay, everyone got that?
Yeah.
What's his hobby? What does he do when he's not touring?
So I don't have a lot of free time. When I was a bit quieter before the season started, I was playing tennis with Sean, who thinks he's better than me now. You probably are. Bring it on. So I was playing a bit of tennis. I was going to the gym. But to answer your question, cooking. I like cooking on one of those cast iron Dutch oven poikies. It's a South African cooking pot. So especially going back to during COVID, I would cook from 7:30 in the morning for 5-6 hours, doing slow cooked stews and stuff like that. I'm in my happy place when I'm cooking. Christmas holidays, I make 2 steak pies and whatever else, lasagnas. I just like putting the apron on, opening a glass of wine, bottle of wine, and that's my happy place. And of course, spending as much time as I can with my family.
So when you retirement, you can open the Andy
Cooking.
Chef Cookers.
Yeah, of course.
Andy's kitchen.
Andy's kitchen. Yeah.
How many are you? How many are involved in your
So my wife
setup
Anna,
now?
my wife Anna, looks after the kids when I'm not home. Obviously, she's a full-time mum with a million jobs, and she does as much as she can with the social media. Sean's full-time. I've got my personal
Is he
assistant
all right as
Lily.
a boss, is he?
In fact, my co-writer Lily Hurt, her name's in the book here.
Yeah.
She's actually in Maine and her ancestors were actually Mackenzies. They were weavers from Inverness. So she's full-time as well, and I use subcontractor guides as well, so always very busy. Yeah, can't sit still, Sarah. I've actually done really well today.
Have you? What, having keeping you here?
That's great.
Yeah. And what about the future? I mean, would you like to do more film work or TV work, or where if you I mean, you've got to go with the flow with your work, but if you could shape it and if you could do it, what would you like to be doing?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I've just got several messages from my agent regarding period productions. Actually, there's a couple coming up, one that we'll all know very well, and I can't say yes to them at the moment because I'm fully booked with the tours. So I think going down the line, it could be, and I've thought this for a few years. The book was the first thing. The social media, this has all kind of happened organically. So I quite fancy doing a wee TV show called Andy's Wee Walks. And for those of you who know me, a wee walk could be the West Highland Way, right? So
Done under the trees.
yeah, we'll go for a wee walk, you know. So it could be Andy's Wee Walks, you know, just me travelling, not scripted, just meeting people. People love natural conversations, you know, not scripted, just talking to people, meeting people, cooking with people, you know, trying local wear. I did some content in California when I was there. I did some content in New York for Tartan Parade. So I think I fancy travelling all over the world and just meeting people and doing a wee TV show.
You need to do the chef show, Scotland style. You know what the chef show is?
Yeah,
The what show?
The chef show.
chef show.
Oh,
Yeah,
John Favreau and this
Yeah.
Korean guy going all over the place.
and people love that, you know.
yeah. And would you do it?
Oh, it has to be. Has to be. I sent Sarah a photo a few days ago, walking past, where was I?
On the West Highland
I was
Way?
on the West Highland Way.
Is it Rowan?
It was
Rannoch.
Rannoch. It was Rannoch Moor.
Oh, Rannoch Moor.
So I sent her a wee photo. Looking forward to seeing you with the kilt on, of course,
Yeah.
in the middle of nowhere, walking the West Highland Way.
But you did. I mean, but I have seen when I was
Trousers
doing
as
my
well.
dooms, yes, I'm afraid
Yeah.
you're in the
Yeah.
halfies.
There were days where it was torrential rain, so I had my gaiters on with the kilt, and one day I had shorts on, and then the other day I had my waterproofs with a kilt on top of it as well. So
How many of these have you got?
more than anyone else. I think I've probably got about 40 kilts.
Oh, really?
I've got mini kilts as well for the kids.
Yes,
So
yes.
I help out with the scouts, with the cubs. I went to Lana's school recently as well, and of course I said, now I wonder if there's a volunteer. Of course, miss, you know, got the teacher dressed up in a kilt as well. So
And you're truly. How many years have you been wearing the plaid for now?
since 2015. I
Okay,
mean,
so
I've
10
had
years.
10 years almost every day, you know. Before this, I owned 2 modern kilts. I got married in my kilt, but I mean, I didn't even know what a Fillmore was until I filmed on Outlander. I couldn't have told you what a dirk was or a basket hilt broadsword. All of this stuff in my head and everything I've learned has been pretty much since 2015 because I filmed on a TV show, because a woman wrote a book as a practice, and here we all are today as well. And that's how I met you as well, Sarah.
Yeah, yeah.
I actually remember the first time I ever met you was up at Culloden. I think it was Chris Duffy.
Oh, yes.
He was doing a wee
Oh,
talk, and you came up to me.
yes, yeah.
You know, your husband saw the
Yes.
the Fraser kilt.
Yes, Willie.
Yeah,
Yes. And
yeah.
he said, "What's that?"
I know. He said, "What's this?"
He'd had a
Exactly.
stroke.
Yeah,
He'd
that's
had a
right.
stroke and his Fraser
Yeah.
Lover. He said, "What's
Yeah.
that?"
So that was the
Oh,
first
he's
time
gonna
I
have another one.
ever met Sarah. But a few years ago, maybe 6 years ago,
Yeah.
7 years ago, I had a dream. Right, I was speaking to you about this earlier on. Jacobite gold.
Oh,
Right?
yes.
So I had a dream. Now, bearing in mind, I've never been to Inverness Tennis Club. Don't even know where it is in the town. But I sent Sarah a message. I know where the Jacobite gold is. It's buried under the right-hand corner of the Inverness Tennis Club. So it just shows you how warped my head is, how involved I am with all this like 18th century stuff, and
Yes.
you know.
That's the
Pretty mad.
Jacobite gold. Now that
What's
was
your
a
thoughts?
great wee walk. What do I think about that
Mm-hmm.
gold? I think a lot of it was taken.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of it was taken. Whether or not it's still buried. You know, this was gold. Most of you'll know about this, but it was gold that was sent over by Spain and France, who the minute news got through that, because of course news travelled so slowly, the first phase of the Jacobite rebellion was the most extraordinary success, and they had taken Edinburgh and effectively controlled Scotland, although without the major garrisons. France and Spain decided to send gold, but it arrived too late, didn't it, on the west coast, and so it was stashed away for the second coming, essentially. Bonnie Prince Charlie was going to go to France, get men and come back. And there's been such a stushy about where it went and who took it and what for. But I mean, those were terrible, terrible times, and there was effectively a kind of military occupation and a violent pacification of the plans. I mean, Duncan Forbes of Culloden wanted the wholesale transportation of rebel clans, the whole lot, man, woman and child. Pick them up, go to Jamaica to work on the sugar plantation.
For indentured service for a minimum of 7 years.
And so gold was taken because they were starving. Everything was. What
terrible.
do you think happened to it?
I think maybe there's some still stashed. I'd like to hope that maybe there is, and maybe one day we'll uncover it. Maybe Paul McDonald will find it, but I think you're probably right. It's probably gone.
Yes.
Or underneath the tennis court in Inverness.
Oh well, that's of course where it is. You just need to get your pile driver out.
But how strange though, you know, it just shows you how connected I am. I have dreams. I had a dream the other night that Sam Hewen was interviewing me or something. I don't know. Strange dreams connected with this Jacobite stuff, 18th century. I used to have a thing about German soldiers during World War II. In fact, D-Day was yesterday. I used to be fascinated with World War II, and I used to have dreams that German soldiers were coming to get me. That then morphed into redcoats. It's so weird.
Yes.
Inverness tennis court is just beside Eden Court.
Aye.
So
Right, let's get the shovel.
so there you go.
So
50-50.
under cover of darkness. But and what would be your ideal tour if you and your family were going touring in Scotland? Where would your dream tour? What would you take in?
I like open spaces, so it would involve going up either the A82 past Loch Lomond. It's a very special place for us, you know. Stopping off at the little less well-known places along the way, just going exploring. There's still loads of places that I haven't been before, you know.
Yes.
And ending up the Highlands somewhere, just finding these little gems.
How do you find new places? Because you need time to. I mean, all these places that you mentioned. There's so many places in so many parts that you've been to. I mean, you've spent 10 years, presumably. You didn't come with that knowledge as Andrew McAlindon.
No, none of it. Not a single thing.
You just set out and you thought, well, I suppose your spine for the thing was the Outlander.
It started with that first. So started off as an Outlander tour guide. It's quite funny. I visit so many different locations, and again going back to Couros Palace, which is one of my favourite places. The staff who work there,
you're just not mentioning it enough.
So you know, when I first started going there, I would come in and I would say to my guests, "Oh, this is where Claire fixes my teeth, episode 11, season 2, and this is supposed to be Derby, and this is historically this is as far as the Jacobites got, December 1745." Then they decided, so that's all I knew, and the staff would be like, "Outlander," you know. But then I go next week or next month, and I'd be like, "Yes, built in 1597, the new block here built 1611. He's now Sir George Bruce," and the staff were like, you know. So it was just picking these things up, and I think obviously if you're interested in something, it goes in a lot quicker, doesn't it?
Yes, it must have changed. I mean, you as a Scotsman in Scotland,
I'm very proud of it.
suddenly you're so connected, aren't you, to so many places?
I feel like a local everywhere I go.
Yes, because you've and as you say, you're digging places up and different. I mean, it's just amazing.
It's such a privilege to show people Scotland, and the whole Andy the Highlander social media thing started. It really started during COVID. People couldn't travel, you know. It was a crazy place at the time. We didn't know what COVID was. So I already had all of these notes on the locations. I had photos and I had videos. My son Daniel, who's 24 now, he's setting up the Zoom thing for me, share screen in the background and audio, you know. I didn't have a clue how to work the computer. But I would do online Zoom tours for people, free of charge. If they wanted to, they could leave a donation. So it kind of started from that, and then Sean got involved as well, and now I've become, you know, one of
Yeah.
Scotland's
Yes.
content creators.
Yes,
Yeah.
you are. You're a real. You know, people have spoken often about Diana being an ambassador for Scotland. I mean, you are as well.
Yeah,
You know.
it's a great honour.
Congratulations, you are.
Thank you.
And what about the book? How did that come about?
So yeah, Lochs Legends, because of the social media, HarperCollins, one of the biggest publishers in the world, sent us an email and asked if I would like to write a book. And you know, we didn't know what the structure of the book would look like initially. We
Okay.
had no idea what direction they wanted to go. And then they changed publisher as well. The new,
Oh, did
the
they?
new one, not publisher, editor.
Oh, okay.
So the new person that came along had a new vision. So anyway, we've now got Lochs Legends. So it's for people who will never come to Scotland. They might be too old or can't afford it or whatever it is. But it's also for people who do come. And I've done it in such a way that you can actually follow it. I've got locations nearer Edinburgh that start with Blackness Castle, Doon Castle, Stirling, Edinburgh. There's a lot of Edinburgh in here. Just wee stories, you know, little paragraphs, Birkenhair, stuff like that. Greyfriars Kirkyard, Canongate Kirkyard, about the Flodden Wall, and then heading up the A9, stopping off at Perth and heading up here. Highland Folk Museum is mentioned in the book. We've got the Wildcats mentioned in the book as well, you know. So we made it kind of flow. And there's also an audiobook version I've done as well, which is, now this was difficult for me. I'm not Gaelic speaking. So my first day doing the audiobook, firstly, I forgot my glasses,
Oh,
which was a
painful.
nightmare, right? But I realised, I was like, oh no, I need to try and pronounce all of these Gaelic names. So I was emailing Agav O'Brien, the Gaelic consultant,
Okay.
Gillibreege as well,
yeah.
and my friends, like, how do I pronounce? Because I wanted
Yeah,
to
yeah.
try my best
Yeah,
to get it accurate. So that's it, you know.
it's great. It's just a beautiful entry point for people, I think.
Yeah.
And I actually love the cover as well. I love that
It's nice
aesthetic.
artwork.
It's that
Yeah,
kind
I did that, drew that all by myself.
of you being from the 18th
Yeah,
century.
that's
not
right,
knowing how
that's
to use
right.
computers.
Yeah.
But I love it. It's that sort of those 1920s and 30s
train things.
train
Yeah.
journeys. You know, take a journey. to the
Timeless,
West
isn't
Coast.
it?
Yes, it's beautiful. Absolutely. And there you are,
Yeah, in front of Urquhart
haunting your
Castle.
own book.
Yeah,
Yeah, well done you.
thank you.
It's now. Any more questions? Anyone coming up with?
Back to the kilts. That is the Fraser colours, but do you wear your own clan colours?
So
sometimes?
this is, as Sarah will tell you, this is based on the
Yeah.
Fraser tartan. The reason Outlander did that is so that Sarah didn't get in touch and say, right, give me some money. So they've based it on the Fraser. So this one's actually the Outlander.
Yeah.
The Fraser's got a bit of red and yellow through it. The Mackenzie's got a bit of blue through it. There's also a Cocknaman tartan named after Cocknaman Rock. There's also a Craignadoon tartan, and they may be making some new tartans as well.
Ah, yes.
So we're actually Irish origin, and for the last 10 years I've had Claire from Prickly Thistle, I've had various other kilt companies saying, look, we'll make your own tartan. So they were explaining that it's all about numbers, right? See all of these different sets here in the tartan, it's all about numbers. So say you've got 4 kids, your birthday's the 23rd of the month, whatever it is, they're all so many different numbers in here, and you make it special to you. But when I finally do get to do my own kilt, it'll be something similar to this. I like the muted colours. I'll have a wee bit of purple through it as well for the heather, you know, something muted.
Yeah. No, it's lovely. It's a lovely.
It's nice, isn't it?
really
I like it.
Yeah, it is. It's great.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Hello.
Hello.
I would like to know if you remember Prague, the city
Of course.
where part of Outlander being
Yeah.
filmed.
Were you there?
Yeah,
I met you.
yeah. And how did you like it? And if you say small hello to Outlander fan.
How do I say it?
Sorry.
How do I say it? Small.
No, it's a
Small hello.
hello.
All right.
Small hello
Okay.
to Outlander fan club.
Yeah, of course.
It was stuff for
Yeah.
filming. So can I ask you please?
Hello, Czech Outlander fan club. I loved your country. Loved the city of Prague. So yeah, I went twice, and the lovely ladies from the Czech Outlander group showed us round the town. And what's the alcohol you have? The schnapps stuff.
The hair of God?
Yeah, we had some of that with us as well. We got a bottle of that as well. So thank you for your hospitality.
So what took you there? Was it?
Well, it was actually my wife's birthday, and I took her on holiday, but it was actually a bit of research. So yeah, Outlander filmed a lot of the French scenes in
Yes.
Prague. You know,
Yeah.
it's cheaper and it looks more like 18th century Paris.
Yeah.
So the ladies from the Facebook group showed us around. We went for lunch together, and it was just fantastic. I've been a couple of times since on tours as well.
Have you?
Been twice with clients as well. Yeah. I'd like to come back. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Any questions from outside?
Yes. When's it going to stop raining?
I think it's looking
it's
clearer
looking
already.
clear.
It is, isn't it?
What's,
Yeah.
what's been your most favourite tour that you've done with people?
Favourite tour? There've been so many. I've never had a bad client. I'm so lucky to travel all over Scotland, you know, and stay in lovely hotels and, you know, just see the most amazing scenery. Very privileged. Two moments that actually stood out to do with the spiritual feeling. Cairns, I think you guys were maybe there the day before. You've certainly been on the winter solstice,
Yeah, it's amazing.
but not at the same time I was there. But it was the 21st of December, the shortest day of the year. Cairns, next to Culloden, the sun's rays enter the chamber. You know the furthest away one when
Yes.
you drive in. There were a load of druids with their lovely white gowns on,
Do they do this every year?
playing the drums, right?
Do they do this every year?
I think they do.
But you don't get the sun every year.
Yeah,
so
we
it
don't
doesn't
get the
work
sun
every year.
But this, what an actually incredible moment to witness. I didn't quite know what I was witnessing, you know, it was just incredible. So, winter solstice, but I've also done a hand fasting at Callanish on the summer solstice. So, I got an elderly couple. In fact, Susan Hurst is supposed to be on tour with me right now up on Skye. She passed away last month. So, repeat clients. I got a lot of repeat clients. Susan was in her 70s, a midwife from Oklahoma, and unfortunately she passed away last month. So we're supposed to be there now. But I did a hand fasting with her and John. Got them up 3:30 in the morning.
So they
Got-
weren't married?
No, they were, but this is an
Oh, I
unofficial
see.
renewal,
I was
you know.
say,
So
hope springs eternal.
so John's in his 80s, you know.
Whoa!
And I got him lying on the ground, getting the kilt on with a sword. But they just loved it, you know, they loved Scotland. So that was a really memorable moment as well. And the night before, as the sun went down, there was a guy playing the bagpipes, there were a load of hippies, you know, loads of people with camper vans just taking it all in. Just really spiritual, amazing.
Yes, yeah. There's a Gaelic saying around hand fasting. Because hand fasting, you know, is essentially a trial marriage. You know, you pledge to stay together for a year, and if at the end of the year you're not,
Yeah.
you're still friendly,
Yeah.
then you go ahead and get married, and if not, you split with.
Yeah.
You know. But the Gaelic saying is in English. It says if you want praise, fall in love. If you want criticism, get married. Which is
That's a good one. I like that
which
one.
is not very hopeful when you're
Yeah,
setting out
I
for
know,
hand
yeah.
fasting, is it? But anyway,
Yes, I like that one.
I think on that note we're finished, are we?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, of
Oh,
course.
one more question. Yes. No.
Favourite whiskey? Again, I talk about that in the book. And on the West Highland Way, as it poured down, I reminded myself, we're always optimistic, I reminded myself that all of that rain coming down, that torrential rain coming down, that's tomorrow's whiskey. But it depends what mood I'm in. My son Daniel prefers the peaty, smoky whiskies. I would generally prefer maybe a Dalwhinnie. It's the highest distillery in Scotland. Nice Highland whiskey, or maybe a Glenlivet Speyside. So I like the sweet,
The drop.
yeah, the sweet characteristics, vanilla, caramelly flavours.
Yeah.
But it just depends. And what I've learned over the years, it's not about getting drunk. It's about community. It's about friendship. It's about sitting, taking your time, sharing a dram, and sharing stories.
Well, that's what a ceilidh is, isn't it?
That's what Cayley is.
I mean, a ceilidh is
Absolutely.
It means visiting,
Yeah,
going
yeah.
ceilidh.
It's not just a Cayley dance. It's just
was actually going visiting and being
That's right.
convivial. I know a friend of mine. She was brought up in Orkney, and of course they didn't have mains electricity when she was growing up. So when the cattle were folded and milked, the generator went off because the cattle didn't need the light anymore. And that, she said, all you could hear were people going. That was in Orkney, which is not obviously it's Norse, not Gaelic,
Yeah.
but just people starting to go caileying. And she said, of course, mains electricity arrived,
yeah, changed it.
TV, and it went.
Yeah.
Caileying stopped at 90% junk.
Such a
Whereas
shame.
it was what you did.
Yeah,
You know.
you would. talk to each other.
Yes,
Yes.
like we're doing.
Like
And
you're
on
doing.
that note,
Yes.
how very, very convivial to spend time with you, Andy.
Thank you so much,
And
Sarah.
everybody coming to share the conversation. And enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you, Andy the Highlander.
Thanks, everyone.
Woo!
Thank you, Sarah.
And a huge thank you to Sarah also. Sarah Fraser, amazing author, amazing presenter, fantastic.
Yeah.
And Andy for coming all the way up. So huge
thank you.
thank you. Absolutely fantastic.
Pleasure.
Brilliant.
Always a pleasure.
Of course.